Jaylen Brown is one of the most polarizing players in the NBA, from opinions about how good or bad he is, what he can and can't do on the court, and how much he should or shouldn't be making money-wise. The opinions tend to vary. I'll be honest with you, I've been a fan of Jaylen for years now, even before he was drafted by the Celtics. He's the first draft prospect I ever truly evaluated. But I'm making this video because I want to give a nuanced breakdown of Jaylen Brown as a player. But quickly, before we go any further, if you're new and like basketball, I'd really appreciate if you would like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball all the time, and liking and subscribing are the two best ways that can help me out in the YouTube algorithm and help me reach my goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of the 2024 NBA season. Let's try and get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. Anyways, let's talk about Jaylen Brown. Now, the question of is Jaylen Brown good has a very simple answer. He's a very good player. 23.9 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 3.1 assists per game on 48.3, 36.5, 75.4 splits, and a 58.1 true shooting percentage over his last 4 seasons. During this stretch, he's made 2 All-Star teams and 1 All-NBA team. His best season was his most recent one, where he averaged 26.6 points per game, 6.9 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game on 49.1, 33.5, 76.5 splits, and a 58.1 true shooting percentage. In the playoffs during this stretch, he's averaged 22.6 points per game on 48, 36.3, 76.1 splits, and a 57.9 true shooting percentage. He's been a top 2 option on a team that's made the conference finals in 3 out of the last 4 seasons. The one year the Celtics didn't make the conference finals was 2021, and Jaylen missed those playoffs due to injury. So Jaylen has proven to be a near 24 point per game scorer, a top 2 option on a team that has a standard of deep playoff runs, and has been an all-star level player over the past 4 seasons. So why is Jaylen so polarizing? Why is he heavily criticized? Why don't people seem to like him as a player? He has good numbers, and he has an impact on a winning team. Well, the answer is very simple. It's his flaws. Now, all players have flaws, even the best ones, so the fact that he has flaws in of itself isn't the problem. It's how glaring his flaws are and how detrimental those flaws can be. Let's start with the most obvious flaw in Jaylen's game, which is his handle. Now, I don't believe in this idea that Jaylen can't dribble or has an awful handle, but I'll talk more about that later. Let's focus on the problems with his handle. The one that everyone talks about is his inability to use his left hand, and I'll be honest, it's completely justified. He can't go left. He's uncomfortable creating with his left hand as a dribbler, and it was exploited in the 2023 Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat, where they forced him to go left because they knew it would make him less effective, which led to Jaylen averaging 3.5 turnovers per game in that series, including 6 turnovers in Game 1, 4 turnovers in Game 6, and 8 turnovers in Game 7. Being able to limit the space a player can operate can lead to making them less effective, and the Heat's game plan against Jaylen was a big reason as to why he had a bad series. I would argue the worst playoff series of his career. The other problem with Jaylen's handle is his overconfidence. Now, Jaylen's overconfidence is a bigger issue that goes beyond just his handle, but specifically with his handle, he tends to over-dribble, and his handle can be loose at times, and when you over-dribble with a handle that is solid but a bit loose, you really lead to a lot of problems. The problem isn't that Jaylen Brown isn't capable of dribbling. The problem is he knows he's capable of dribbling and tries to do too much. This leads to over-dribbling in situations where he doesn't have to, which leads to a lot of unnecessary turnovers. And overextending yourself can be detrimental to your team in high-stakes situations like in the Miami Heat series. But the overconfidence goes beyond just dribbling. Jaylen Brown is a good shooter, but he tends to be overconfident. He takes bad shots. He has tunnel vision. He has moments where he stalls an offense. There's a difference between capability and good looks. Jaylen is capable of taking and making tough shots, but he does them in situations where it isn't necessary. Now, he does have moments where it is necessary and he brings positive value, but there are also times where it's frustrating to see his decision making and shot selection on tape. Another problem with Jaylen is his defense. Now, Jaylen is a good on-ball defender. He's strong, athletic, and he's engaged in those situations, and he does a good job of locking up guys on the ball defensively. But the problem is that on-ball defense is only half the equation. Off-ball defense matters just as much, if not more. And Jaylen is objectively a bad off-ball defender. He gets backdoored a ton, he dies on screens, he leaves open shooters, he's just not locked in as an off-ball defender. Which is why you see the Celtics put him on primary ball handlers a lot to keep him engaged and get as much positive value from him on that end of the floor. Regardless, his flaws off the ball are detrimental and make him a negative player, even if he brings on-ball value on defense. Now, I just mentioned a lot of negatives about Jaylen. He can't go left, he over-dribbles, he forces bad shots, he makes bad decisions, he has tunnel vision, he's a negative as an off-ball defender. All very real and justified criticisms. But like I said at the beginning, objectively speaking, he's not a bad basketball player. Objectively speaking, he's a very good NBA player. I can't look at a guy who's averaged over 20 points per game on a contending level team for 4 years and has had equal to above league average field goal percentage, 2-point percentage, effective field goal percentage, and true shooting percentage in all 4 of those seasons and say that he's bad. So there has to be positives with Jaylen as a player, whether you want to admit it or not. For me, when it comes to Jaylen, it really all is around his athleticism. Jaylen is one of the most athletic players in the NBA, and I don't think that's a hot take. His combination of elite strength, quickness, speed, and vertical explosion isn't matched by many in the NBA, and it's the foundation for what makes him an effective player. When Jaylen is at his best, he's making quick decisions, and while his handle isn't great by any means, when utilized properly, it is effective. What makes Jaylen so frustrating when he over-dribbles is the fact that he doesn't need that many dribbles to be effective because of how physical and athletic he is. He can overpower smaller defenders with his pure strength. He's one of the strongest wings in the NBA, and because of his strength, speed, and quickness, he really only needs 1 or 2, at most 3 dribbles to get to his spots. When Jaylen is at his best, he's making quick decisions, not wasting movement skills, and using his athleticism to his advantage. I've watched Jaylen for almost 10 years now, dating back to before the NBA, and when he's at his best, he's always only using a few dribbles. He uses jabs into one-dribble crosses or step backs. He uses spins or half steps to get to his spots when necessary. He uses his quick first step and strength to be overpowering as a slasher without any wasted movement. He plays off the ball and hits catch and shoot looks or off movement shots. When Jaylen does those things, that's when you see the positive player. That's when you see the near 27 point per game All-NBA level guy. That's when you see the guy who scored 46 points on a 68.6 true shooting percentage and was a plus 16 in a 4-point loss, or scored 50 points on a 76.9 true shooting percentage. That's when you see the ideal second star on a contender. But when he overextends himself, that's when you see the player we saw in the Miami Heat series. When it comes to Jaylen Brown, I see both sides of it. I see the frustration people have with him. I see the side of people who are high on him. Something that's very common with NBA fans who don't like a player is they're overcritical of them, and those who like him overrate him. And Jaylen is a big example of that. There's this small but loud group that think he's better than Tatum or the next Jimmy Butler or Kawhi Leonard, and I don't agree with that at all. But I don't agree with the people who think that he's bad and act like he doesn't perform in the playoffs. Yes, he was bad in the 2023 Eastern Conference Finals. There's no way around it. He was a negative and a big reason why they lost that series. But to act like Jaylen is a bad playoff performer overall just based off that one series is wrong. He's not a playoff riser per se, but he's not bad for the most part either. I look at every playoff series since 2020 for him, and the only one that's glaringly bad is the 2023 Heat series. I looked at every playoff series for him since 2022, and he's been good for the most part. He was solid in the 2022 Nets series. He was good in the 2022 Bucks series. He was good in the 2022 Eastern Conference Finals against the Heat. He had bad moments and he wasn't perfect, but overall I would say he was solid to good in the 2022 Finals. In fact, he was their best player in that series. He was their best player in the 2023 first round series against the Hawks. Tatum was very inconsistent in that series, and he was the Celtics' best player for all but 5 quarters of the 2023 series against the Philadelphia 76ers, because Tatum was historic in those final 5 quarters, and I think that makes people forget that he wasn't really that good in that series until those final 5 quarters. Jaylen was the best player on the team until those final 5 quarters. I'll take it even further. Jaylen held the fort down long enough for Tatum to wake up and take over that fourth quarter down 3-2 in Game 6 of that series. I can't excuse what Jaylen did in the conference finals in 2023. He was bad. No way around it. Big reason that they lost. But to act like he's bad in the playoffs just because of that one series isn't right. Is he perfect? No. Are the flaws that he has as a player relevant in the playoffs? Yes. But he also has shown he can step up in the playoffs as well, and I think that's something that isn't highlighted enough. Now, is Jaylen Brown worth $300 million? Should he be the highest paid player in the NBA right now? The answer right now is objectively no. He shouldn't be paid like the best player in the world because he's not the best player in the world. But I do think context matters. He won't be the highest paid player for long. Remember when Mike Conley signed a $153 million extension in 2015? That was the biggest contract in NBA history at the time. Mike Conley was a great player, one of the most underrated of his generation. But at the time, that contract looked like a lot. But since then, the contracts have gotten bigger. $30.6 million per season was a lot when Mike Conley signed that contract. But as we've seen, things have changed. $30.6 million a season is what the 44th highest paid player in the NBA is going to make this upcoming season. In fact, that's less than what the rookie max extension is right now. So right now, Jaylen making $60.8 million is a lot. And there's no way around it. But I think once we see guys like Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, Tatum, SGA, Ja, among others, and what they make on their next deals, that number won't look as bad, just like it did with Mike Conley. It wouldn't shock me if the current Jaylen deal is less than what Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, Paulo Banchero, or even Cooper Flag, if we really want to go far into the future, get on their rookie max extensions in a few years. So right now the deal looks bad. Time will tell if that contract was worth it. But I do think in a few years it won't look as bad. Jaylen Brown is a player that has been a subject of debate. His flaws are noticeable, frustrating, and even detrimental at times. But he's also shown more than enough to warrant being classified as a very good to great NBA player. The best way I can describe Jaylen is that he's really good to great, but tries to do too much. He gets in his own way. When he keeps it simple, makes quick decisions, and doesn't try to do too much, doesn't waste movement, and uses his athleticism to his advantage, he's a very good to great player that can put up big numbers and be a top 2 option on a contender. But when he tries to do too much, it can be disastrous. When he's over dribbling, taking bad shots, and falling asleep on defense, it's not pretty. It's like watching a good player cosplay as a bad player. It's like watching a bad 2K player, like myself, I'm awful at that game, try and use a good team on Hall of Fame difficulty. I think both sides of the discourse bring up good and bad points. They both are right and wrong in their own ways. Which makes sense because Jaylen is a great player that is also incredibly frustrating. At the end of the day, it is what it is when it comes to Jaylen Brown. If you like him, you're going to love him. If you don't like him, you're going to hate him. He gives you both good and bad things that stand out on tape equally. And what stands out to you more will dictate how you view him as a player. But that's the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball all the time, and liking and subscribing are the two best ways can help me out in the YouTube algorithm and help me reach my goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of the 2024 NBA season. Let's try and get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. Let me know what you think about Jaylen Brown. What do you think about the contract? How good do you think he is? Think he's overrated, underrated? Love to hear all that in the comment section below. But with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.